All right, it is Tuesday night, and we are hitting the home stretch before hockey seasons on Goal Horns and Fight Songs. I'm Mike. Joining me as always is Wes. And yeah, like I said, we can see the finish line, Wes. We are down to our last team, and then next week we do our predictions. The season is almost here.
The season is almost here. NHL's preseason's going down. Jason Poling got some great time with the Colorado Avalanche last night while they played Paul Cotter and the Las Vegas Golden Knights. So a couple of Western guys getting some ice time on each team. I think Ethan Frank has a chance of playing Thursday night for the Capitals in preseason, so he'll get to show the whole world what kind of speed he's got in those legs. But yeah, no, we're getting close. Less than 2 weeks, a little over a week before we hit week 0.5 next weekend. Couldn't be here quick enough.
Yeah, especially with how things are going, especially in Minnesota, for how things are going with other sports. But I know Riley Tufte, I did not realize he had signed as a free agent with Colorado. He scored on Sunday against Wild. So he's getting time, and haven't paid too much attention to other players from UMD, but I'm assuming Scotty Perunovic is back and healthy after yet another surgery. Alex Iafallo. I can never Carson Soucy, and then there's another kid that I can never remember his name. Can picture his face, but can never remember his name. But they're all back at it again. But you bringing up the Western players, that's the last team that we have to talk about.
Oh, before we do that, we should probably give Brandon Bussey some props for his game, his preseason game with Boston, shutting out the Rangers, making news on Twitter with some spectacular saves. Not that they're all that spectacular if you watched him play at Western. He's made those saves his entire career, but doing it at the biggest level, even though it's preseason, is still incredible to see. And he's definitely making a name for himself and making a case to be one of those two goalies starting in the big time.
I actually think, yeah, our friend John sent us or sent me a video of him making the cross crease glove save. That was just unreal, and it hurt me. I had to take a day off and stretch my muscles after that save.
I'm pretty sure he made an extremely similar save in his last year at Western. I just can't remember who it was against, but I feel like he did. And that's why I was not necessarily impressed, but glad that he's showing what we all know here in Kalamazoo, that he's an incredible goalie and does not stop playing until the puck is covered or out of his zone. So glad to see that the NHL world is starting to take notice and realize the type of player he is. Scotty Perunovic is playing. He is 10 and a half minutes of ice time.
Oh.
The Blues Blue Jackets game.
Good. I want to see him do well. He's still forever going to be a little shit in my mind, but I want to see him do well.
Hunter McCown is also playing in that game and has about 4 minutes of ice time. He signed with Columbus right at the end of last season. But, let's dive into the team we're here to talk about. This is an NCHC podcast, not an NHL podcast. So we're going to do what we came here to do, and that's talk about some NCHC teams, or one in particular, my Western Michigan Broncos, as you can see by this glorious background that I have here. They finished a program high second in the NCHC last year, however, did fall to Colorado in the opening round of playoffs. Don't think we really need to delve into that too much.
I think we maybe should.
I mean, I guess if you want to, there's really not much to talk about. They got swept in the first round of the
Hey,
NCHC playoffs. There, we covered it. It's a new year.
hey,
New year, buddy. New year. That doesn't matter anymore.
exactly. Did the same as my Bulldogs.
So some key departures. Once again, Western is losing their top offensive line. Um, this year a little bit more surprising that we're losing everybody because Ryan McAllister will leave after only 1 year. And an incredible year that it was. A 4-time Rookie of the Week, a 2-time Rookie of the Month in the NCHC. He put up incredible numbers: 13 goals, 36 assists for 49 points. Was at the top of the points list in the country. Max Sasson leaves as a sophomore. His sophomore season, he has 15 goals, 27 assists for 42 points. A 2-time NCHC Forward of the Week, a 1-time Player of the Month. Jason Poland leaves after 4 years. He led the country with 30 goals, or ties Adam Fantilli with 30 goals. Jason got there first. 17 assists, 47 total points. A 2-time NCHC Forward of the Week, 1-time Player of the Month, scoring 5 hat tricks in his senior season, now playing with the Colorado Avalanche in the preseason. Total numbers for that line: 58 goals, 80 assists, 138 total points. So we're in a similar spot that we were in last year. We were talking about the fact that they're losing Ethan Frank, they're losing Drew Warad. Cole Gallant stays for a 5th year, but he moves down to the second line, is not part of that first line. He's now since graduated and played a couple games in the ECHL this last year, or this last, after this last season. So offensively, there's some space, but there's also some guys who can step up and make a name for themselves. But that's really the big, and they lose their top defenseman who had led the team with 50 block shots, that being Aiden Fulp, who had 2 goals, 13 assists for 15 total points and leaves after his junior year. So we got some guys leaving early, but we got plenty of guys coming in. And I think if I hadn't seen what Coach Frischweiler and the boys did this year, I might be slightly more concerned. But because, like I just said, we did see this last year and it just was a matter of guys stepping up and filling roles, I'm not as concerned with the offensive turnover.
And that's one thing that you and I we obviously talk outside of this, and I noticed with you guys losing so much firepower, but then you coming in and looking at the transfers that you even brought in with um Constantini and Sam Colangelo, who we had on this podcast. It I don't see that much room for concern, I guess is the best way to put it. It's these are guys that can put up points. They just have to be put in the right situation. And from 2 years ago to last year and now to this year, I think Western has a system in place to allow players to succeed and allow guys to succeed. You just look at what Poland did, McAllister coming in as freshman. He was a little under the radar, but you look at what he did in juniors because he didn't play major junior. He was in that second level. Um, he had a chance to flourish, and then he only stayed 1 year. You still have returners like Granger and who else am I thinking of? You have a lot of returners that have been on this team before. Uh, Hillebrand is another name. Tim Washi, guys that have been around this program that I'm not that concerned about the offensive drop off as what maybe some national pundits might be.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. I think Western might be one of the more, if not the most senior team in the conference. They've got 8 total freshmen, 3 total sophomores, 4 juniors, 11 seniors, and 4 grad students / 5th year students. And here's the big thing for me. Of the 11 seniors, only one of them is a transfer in this year. Everybody else has spent at least 1 year at Western Michigan, with Oliver McDonald and Cam Rowe having transferred in last year as junior or to play their junior year with Western. Um, the grad students, two transferred in last year, that being Zach Columbus and Carter Berger, who play on the blue line for Western Michigan and are a couple of key returners that I will bring up here in a minute. And then there's two transfers, one of them being Joe Cassetti from Miami, and the other being Ethan Phillips from Boston University. So some great experienced guys. 15 total, I guess 19 total upperclassmen when you count juniors and seniors and that fifth year grad student class. So I feel like they lean a little bit heavier towards the more experienced side than we've seen some teams in the NCHC. I think that's going to play a big role for them. Like you mentioned, guys returning. Luke Granger, I think he comes in as the highest point returner with 12 goals, 20 assists, 32 points last year, and had a 6-point game in that 13 goal game against UND where Western had to fight back a couple times. He went 2, 4, and 6 in that game. He's a strong center on the dot, much like Tim Washi is. The two great faceoff guys. We did lose our number one center, that being Max Sasson, as he goes and plays with Vancouver. But I think those two guys can get it done. They generally win more faceoffs than they lose, and we've seen that Luke can be extremely dangerous. You personally know for sure that Luke can be dangerous on the faceoff dot, as he took that one puck away that nobody saw if you were watching the broadcast, because he took the puck straight off the faceoff, past a couple defensemen, and scored a return goal on the ensuing faceoff after UMD had scored one of their goals against Western last
year. Yeah, that was dumb. And then I think one of the most underrated things that people are missing is the back end is pretty.
The back end stout in returning players.
Yeah, exactly.
We're returning 6 of 8 defensemen, I believe, is what the number I saw.
There are so many returning players, and then Cam Rowe has that familiarity, and he was, I don't want to say he was great. He was solid in his year last year with Western, but I think having that 1 year under his belt and now knowing his defenseman, he's going to be even better. So even if the offensive output isn't what we've become accustomed to the last 2 years from Western, the defensive standpoint should be a lot better, and they should give up less goals because he has that familiarity. He knows what his defensemen are going to do. And then he's just a good goalie overall. Like, he's not great. He's not bad, but he's kind of like the Kirk Cousins, where he's just that. I think he's like that second tier of goalie where you're really good, you're just not great yet, and he could be great.
Okay, so let me go through a couple of things. Yes, he did struggle at the beginning of the year coming to Western. I think our entire defense struggled last year a little bit. I expect that to be a little bit better this year. But let's compare the previous two Western Michigan goaltenders in their junior seasons, which really kind of for Brandon was really his second year because he didn't play much of his sophomore season. But his junior year,
he lost his leg for 1 year.
Junior year, he appeared in all 39 games for Western, went 26, 12, and 1, recorded 4 shutouts, had a 2.54 goals against average, and a 9.12 save percentage. Okay, led Western Michigan to a 3rd place finish in the NCHC. Won a NCHC opening round game. Got us to the NCHC finals. All great things. Don't get me wrong. Brandon Bussey's junior year was a great year all around. But can we please stop knocking on Cam Rowe? Because here are his numbers. He appeared in 31 games. He went 18, 11, and 1, recorded 3 shutouts, had a 2.43 goals against average, and a 9.10 save percentage. and was a 5-time NCHC goalie of the week. Like literally comparable numbers to Brandon Bussey. He did not play in as many games just because I think there were two goaltenders who were fighting for that spot of starting goaltender. He ends up winning it, and Western is able to rely on him and have confidence knowing that the guy back there is going to stop pucks and he's going to give you everything he's got to give you. Yes, he did have some shaky moments. I think that a part of that was getting used to NCHC play. I think part of that was learning how his defense core around him was going to play. And really, a lot of the goals he gave up last year were fluky goals that I think if he could have erased and may not always be goals. I mean, hell, he had one go off of the back glass, hit him in the shoulder, and go in the net at Amsoil Arena. Like, how many times is that goal scored? Legitimately. Like, it's a fluke goal.
I mean, and the thing is, like, I'm not hating on him, and that kind of goes back to my point where he now has a year of familiarity with his defensive core. I'm just going off of last year, and like I said, he wasn't bad. It was just some of the goals that he gave up
were iffy, for sure.
It was like Devin Dubnyk towards the end of his career. It was kind of like, well, you can expect one softie out of Doobie, and then he's going to be solid the rest of the game. Where I think now with this year under his belt, I expect him to have a jump in his game and be better. It was just, you can only go off what you've seen before, and last year he was good. It wasn't great. He wasn't bad. He was good. He was solid. And that's where I see him right now. I expect him to be better, but I also expect Beeson and Stayskal to be better too.
The thing I like the most
I
about
just
him,
think he's better than they were.
The thing I like the most about him is that he got better as the season went on.
Mm-hmm.
And he definitely, there were games where he outplayed the other goalie at the other end of the ice. And I mean, one for sure that we know that he outplayed is playing in the NHL now, and that's Devin Levi. Camero outplayed Devin Levi in that game in Nashville.
That wasn't even close.
And gave his team every chance to win that game, and was benefited with an offensive showing by one of the better offensive teams last year. In which case, it was another game where Jason Poland recorded his third hat trick of the season. He got the third one on an empty netter, but either way, I mean, to put up two on Devin Levi when Western struggled to put up two against him in the NCAA game the year before, and it came down to an incredible wraparound goal that not a lot of people noticed on first go. That was a goal scored by Luke Granger.
And I think Cam and the defensive core are going to get noticed more this year than they did last year, because last year it was a lot easier to be overshadowed by the offensive output. And I think that's where some of the criticism of him may come from. Be like, well, you only had this many wins because you had a top 3 offense in the nation, where, if it happens again this year, everybody needs to look out. But if it doesn't, and they take a step back, which, is possible, it's tough to have that offense 3 years in a row. If Western still puts up what we think they're going to put up as far as wins and points in the conference and where they finish, it's going to be more noticeable on the back end than it is the front end.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has definitely got to be a little bit cleaner. I know that a lot of the guys like to jump in on the offensive side of the game, but there's definitely good offense can translate, or good defense can translate to good offense in the blink of an eye. I mean, how many times do you see a goalie make a great save, the puck's at the other end of the net, and before you know it, it's behind the other goalie because everybody played their role on the defensive end and didn't get bogged down trying to burn energy, waste blocking shots or chasing pucks. So I mean, on that regard, I would like to see them be a little bit more mindful of what they're doing in the defensive zone, and not be a team that chases the puck. But yeah, the players are who they are, and the coach runs a system and looks for players that fit that system. I think some of that's defensive guys who like to jump in on the offense, who like to pressure pucks and can sometimes play themselves out of position. But I think we have a team and we have players who can be mindful of that and cover for guys and be smart. I think we got ourselves in a few positions that we can learn from last year. Forgetting when a power play is ending and not necessarily being cognizant of that with the puck and blowing games. A couple times that happened last year. I think one of those was to UMD here in Kalamazoo. We got to clean that kind of stuff up. But we also have the reigning NCHC Herbs Brooks Coach of the Year and Pat Ferschweiler. I think he can keep the program going in the positive manner that it's been in, and he's really helped Western find that next level that we were kind of missing under Coach Andy Murray, who, I mean, I really don't have many bad things to say about, because he got the program to begin the climb that it's on now and help them win a conference championship. But I think Pat has done a great job of continuing that, and I don't know that it'll be too long before we see Western either raise a Penrose Cup or we see them win the Frozen Four. I have a lot of confidence in this team, and I think some of the players coming back, like Zach Galambos and Carter Berger, I think they're going to play big roles on the defensive end, and they'll contribute offensively as we've seen them do in the past. I'm really excited both of them came back. I think Luke could have a breakout year, either whether that's being an assist guy like he has in years past or scoring goals. He has a knack for scoring timely goals. I think Sam coming in as a transfer dude could have a big year ahead of him. Those are kind of my guys to look out for, and I see big things coming from them. I think Cam will show that last year his numbers weren't a fluke, and I think he's going to continue to get better and play well within the Western system. I think he has confidence of the guys in front of him and realizes he doesn't have to do it all on his own, and they'll get him some points to help keep him at ease too.
I think I was just going to go back to when you were talking about the back end. I think last year, and we don't know what this team is going to look like this year. Last year, they got a little too point happy and wanting to jump in and score goals, where that transition game would have been more helpful, because they were one of the deadliest teams in transition, especially when you had that top line out there. Where this year, it's going to take a few series to figure out what you need to do. But if it's anything like last year and even the year prior, yeah, it's great to get the goals and everything, but I don't think your defensive core needs to step up as much, as long as they can hit those passes. And I think with having that experienced defensive core, they're going to understand, let's stay back, let's protect our own net, and then hit these passes, because we know we can make them, and we know guys are going to be where they're supposed to be, and then have the forwards, because an assist is just as good as a goal. If you give them that opportunity, who cares if you have 10 goals and 31 assists, or 0 goals and 41 assists as a defenseman? I mean, yeah, everybody likes to score, but I'd rather my team win and hoist the Penrose versus my own personal stats. Because if you make the right plays, teams are going to notice you.
Yeah.
Just are.
And I mean, it comes down to forwards being mindful in the defensive zone too. I think that was part of the reason that Jason Poland was such a great player. He was a 200-foot guy. He could play just as good on the defensive end and shut guys down, and he could go down and score 30 goals in a season. I think Max Hassan was another guy who was extremely smart in the defensive zone. They didn't try and leave the zone too early. Um, Granger plays great defense. It's guys who play well in all assets of the game who are going to get looked at and who are going to end up signing pro contracts, and it's because they're great teammates. They play the game the right way, and you play the game the right way. Eventually, you're going to get rewarded with stats in the offensive end.
Mhm.
So, I think with everything they've got, I feel like we're getting disrespected a little bit in all of the polls, and I don't understand some of it. Another name that I think could be a big name is Sam Sojlund, who is the sophomore from Stockholm who had to sit out last year uh, for NCHC or NCAA violation reasons. But he should get some playing time. I mean, he'll provide a boost in that defensive end. I'm really interested to see what he brings to this team. Carter Berger, I think, finished the year last year injured, so to have him come back is a big boost. Um, Columbus, who we already have mentioned, was a great shot to have on the power play, um, offensively, but also a great defenseman and kept guys away from dangerous spots. They've got players in all assets, and it's just a matter of who steps up and who is able to take that role as the leading scorer on the team. And there's definitely plenty of guys to do it.
Yeah, and we can. I know we'll go over it next week when we make our predictions about our agreements and disagreements with what everyone else, the experts, have to say. But I know I messaged you this earlier. For some reason, Western just has a really fascinating way of scheduling their opponents, the non-conference opponents,
I will
and it
say
confuses the hell out of me.
this schedule is an interesting one. I think we have scheduled more difficult non-conference schedules in the past. I mean, you can't schedule every year the same way because not everybody wants to play the exact same games every year, so you got to mix it up a little bit. I like what they did for the most part. There are some interesting selections, but Western Michigan starts with a game that we're not entirely thrilled with. But I guess if it's I would much rather see this game at the beginning of the schedule here than in the middle of the year. Up for one.
That that's a fair point. Um,
And if you
the
don't know what
eight
we're
the
talking about,
18 under team.
Western will play the U.S. National Under 18 team uh, in Plymouth, Michigan. So it's a home game for the national development team, October 7th at 7. Uh, that's their exhibition game in week 0.5, the unofficial start to the season for them. And we've talked about this every time this team comes up. I hate these games. I don't really know that they benefit anybody. But again, I much rather see it here as a gear up to a season. All right, calm down. Notification that just blew my own ears out. Sorry about that. But yeah, I'd much rather this game be here as a gear up to the season than in the middle of the year where you're potentially taking your eye off the prize and being like, well, they're children. I probably shouldn't play them as hard as I can because they're literally legally children.
Yeah, I think I that is a good point, and I think playing the U18 team at the start of the year is the I don't want to say perfect, but it's a very good way to get the rust off. You don't have to play as hard, but it's still uh, game speed. You get some guys that basically an NFL preseason game where you get some guys that might be fringe players. Your Sam isn't probably will barely play. Luke will probably barely play. Galambos probably barely play. I don't even know if Cam will probably play a period. Um, just get that rust off, and then you can jump into the season. But those fringe guys that you don't know, are they a fourth liner? Are they healthy scratch? They can get that game experience, and especially the freshmen. Um, good way to get a look at them and then start the season rather than, okay, we had our Christmas break, but we're still in the middle of a hockey season. What do we do? If we lose, everybody's going to make fun of us. If we win, well, we should win. Start of the year, okay. The best place to put this game.
Yeah, if you're gonna play it, here's where you play it. Again, I still meh, not necessarily a fan of the game. To me, it feels like an NFL team playing a college team to start the year. Like it's that silly in the concept of it. Like it's sillier than Alabama scheduling what Middle Tennessee or whatever nonsense they sometimes schedule for that one game a year. That's not even really a game.
I thought you were just going to say University of Minnesota because that would be about the same thing.
But it's just I don't know. I don't know that you get a lot from this. I think potentially maybe because these could be considered like some of the best kids in the country for their where they are, and a lot of them are gonna go to college potentially the next year, or skip college and go to major juniors or
I
AHL potentially.
the the way that I look at the development team is I I think it's more title than actually skill, to be honest. I They want to make it sound like some of the kids are better than they are. And it's like, oh, I played for the US national development team. Okay, good for you. That like it if you really are that good, then you're probably not playing for the development team. I
Yeah,
like
probably.
yes, there are kids that play in the
Well, I mean,
USHL program, and that's fine. That one doesn't bother me as much. But for me, there's for those kids, it's more of a name and a lure of the name than it is actually doing something for them, if that makes sense.
could be. I mean, I don't know a whole bunch about it. I really only pay attention to a couple hockey teams, if we're being fair.
Yeah, USHL team, they play against, Fargo Force and the Stampede, and they actually play the US major junior level. So that those ones I'm not too worried about, but anything else, I'm like, there are a lot better options. I
Sorry, I'm confused by a tweet from Omaha. It literally is just their. Isn't that already their white jersey with the? Oh, maybe they used to say Omaha. Now they're just gonna have the O,
oh,
and it just doesn't seem like it's that big of a shock. I think it would have been cooler if they brought back the bullhead. Anyway, back to what we're here for.
so anyway, now that we've gone off about
What we got?
the exhibition game,
The
Western starts the season with a home and home against Ferris State.
on a Thursday and a Friday. Whoop, whoop. Um, they've done this a few times. I mean, they've even had games on Tuesdays at the beginning of the year. It's a little bit interesting. Hey, Ferris isn't that far away. I think it's like maybe 103 miles, maybe away. It's about an hour and a half drive. Um, two teams they know each other pretty well. They played twice last year. Once at Ferris, and then again in the GLI. Western winning both games. They had to come back a little bit in the first game. at Ferris, but the GLI game was not close at all. In fact,
Well, neither of them were.
Jason Pullen recorded another hat trick against Ferris in that GLI game for his third of the season, and then picked up his fourth of the season and got his fifth in the next game. Or did they play Michigan Tech first? Either way, he had a hat trick both nights of the GLI. So they'll play Ferris home and away. They start this season at Lawson Thursday night. It's going to be bumping. I think everyone's kind of excited to have Western back. It is the 50th anniversary of Western hockey. So big year for the boys and the program. I believe at some night, Danny DeKaiser will be introduced as being inducted into the Western Sports Hall of Fame, I believe. As he's already a member of the Hockey Ring of Honor. So I believe he's getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. Their next series, October 20th and 21st, is another home and away. Friday, they're away at Bowling Green. Saturday, they are home welcoming the Falcons, who have a lot of drama going on. Losing potentially one of their best players in the transfer portal, who transferred to Northern or Michigan Tech? Son of a biscuit, I don't remember. I know he stayed in the CCHA. But again, that's not necessarily what we're following. I don't remember. But a little bit that's a hit to Bowling Green. Also, I believe their head coach is suspended at the moment. I don't know if there's been any progress made as far as when he could be returning.
I
for a
zero idea on this.
For a hazing incident that led the player to transfer out of the Bowling Green program. You should really pay attention to college hockey there, sir.
I don't pay attention to the CCHA.
Well, I don't really either, but when it's important, like, we're starting the year against two CCHA teams, I kind of pay attention. Then we jump into NCHC play, taking on, which is kind of weird that Western does not start the season with Miami University as they usually do. Instead, this time they're jumping into NCHC play against a team that will be in their little 3-team pod beginning next year, that being the University of Nebraska Omaha. Down in Omaha, which has not been very friendly to Western Michigan. I hope that changes this year. It would be nice to get off to a solid start in the conference. But we'll see.
Yeah, there's something about Omaha that it's a tough place to play, and I don't know why. If it's the atmosphere or whatever, it just seems like it's a very tough place to play for not only Western but a lot of teams.
Unless you're North Dakota for some reason.
Last year that was the only place they could win.
Hey, they won there when it mattered, and that got them into the finals. Next up, they come back to Western to welcome in St. Cloud State University. And they go a lot of back and forth. They go out to Colorado, back home for St. Lawrence University, who I believe they played at St. Lawrence last year.
I will tell you in just a minute.
Back-to-back non-conference in the middle of November, December with the first series. Ooh, they also get 4 straight home games. Nope, they get more than that. 6 straight home games. Technically 7, but one's an exhibition game in the middle of the holiday. But the first series against Lindenwood of the season. That's right, I said first. This one's at home. Back into conference play, hosting the University of Denver. The exhibition game against Western Ontario, December 30th. Then Western goes to St. Charles, Minnesota, hometown of one of our favorite human beings in the world, that being Trevor Gorsuch,
I
to
mean, St.
play.
Charles, Missouri.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said St. Charles,
You
hometown
said
of one of our favorite human beings, Trevor Gorsuch.
no. You said St. Charles, Minnesota.
Missouri, whatever. Close enough.
They're
Saints.
very different states.
They're right next to each other. It's fine. It doesn't matter.
By a few hundred miles, you know.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Doesn't matter. But they'll play Lindenwood for a second time this season. 4 games total. 2 in Kalamazoo, 2 in Missouri. Then we get our first series against rival Miami University. Down in Oxford, we welcome Michael's Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs to Lawson Arena in January. Another home series, this time with Colorado. Then we go out to Denver. Then back for Nebraska Omaha. Back on the road to St. Cloud. On the road again to North Dakota. And Miami University finishes the season once again at Lawson Ice Arena. You know, that real important final weekend where they try to keep it to rivalry games. I do like that generally you know who your opponent is the last week of the season. It'll be interesting to see how this goes going forward, which we've mentioned before. Starting next season, with there being 9 teams in the NCHC. So, interesting scheduling going next year, but this year, you know, it's pretty much the same as we've seen it. There's some good balance to the schedule. There's some good, nice long homestands, a few back-to-back road trips. But all in all, I think it's a pretty well-balanced schedule as far as travel time. Maybe not the most balanced difficulty-wise per se. As far as non-conference goes, I mean, the conference is always going to be tough. A team can beat you whether they have 3 wins on the season or 22 wins on the season. So everybody plays the conference teams tough. But I think if Western plays up to their potential, I think this could be a very advantageous schedule to Western Michigan seeking a 3rd straight trip to the NCAA tournament.
I think it's advantageous in the sense of wins. I think only playing North Dakota once might hurt them a little bit.
That depends on how good North Dakota is this year, though.
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. Like, based off of the early indications, it might hurt them a little bit. I don't see it. Playing UMD only once.
It again depends on how good UMD is this year.
That one I'm not sure on. And I'm more upset because we've had over the last couple of years the games that we played, the 2 series, they have been very good games and we play each other really close. St. Lawrence, I'm looking at them, they played Colorado College and Omaha last year. They swept Colorado College in Appleton,
yes,
in Canton. Really? They're in Canton?
Maybe it was 2 years ago then, because I'm pretty sure Western had like a big comeback on them.
And then they played Omaha in Omaha, and they won in overtime and then lost 5-2. I think what hurts Western the most is the 4 games against startup Lindenwood. That's the one thing that really confused me, was why are you playing 4 games against them?
I think
When you want to schedule like, and this is for athletic directors to figure out and everything, but like a Northern Michigan or a Michigan Tech, another CCHA, or um, another Northeastern game or series or something like that, just a different, other than 4 games against Lindenwood, which Western should sweep the all 4 games. Um, why risk losing one, and why have 2 additional games against a team that's not going to help you in an at-large bid situation? That's the way that I see Lindenwood.
I mean, it might have just come down to there not being enough dance partners. There's definitely, I think, who was it last year? I think like Alaska was having trouble finishing out their schedule, and it was a last minute call to like Western Michigan to get Western to go up there and play Anchorage or something to that effect. Um, it might have been one of those type of situations, or they couldn't get a deal done with a different university, and Lindenwood was like, "Hey, we have this weekend open. Let's just put another series here." Or Western may have had a weekend open and said the same things. I mean, again, I think to what you mentioned, it is for the athletic directors to figure out and how all of that works.
And
It's
I
definitely.
mean, they have so much going on in their minds. Like, who knows? Maybe they forgot that they had. I don't know, because I mean, they shouldn't.
I really
But
think it came down to there not being enough dance partners for everybody, and these two teams, for whatever reason, just both having that weekend open and saying, "All right, screw it, let's just run it back." It is definitely interesting to see, a 4-game season series against a non-conference opponent, but not the end of the world. I think to get the most out of it for Western, I think they do have to win all 4. Is it possible? Yeah. Is it probable? I don't know. Yeah, we'll know more when we actually get to see Lindenwood on the ice. I mean, they have some solid players from some solid places. Quite a few Michigan guys. They got some transfers in from American International, Maine. Ferris State, Bowling Green. I mean, they've been building their program with guys who've been around college hockey and look to continue building that program. So they're not going to be easy games by any means. It definitely could help Lindenwood more than it could help Western, but again, I think it might have just come down to it being hard to find a dance partner for one of those 2 weekends, and them saying, "Okay, let's do it." Because I mean, that second set is the first week in January, where we often sometimes see, um, holiday tournaments continue or finish up. Um, it's hard to kind of book that first weekend there in January with what programs do or what schools are doing with how they're handling breaks and things like that. So I think it might have just come down to a situation like that, but I don't hate it, to be honest.
I now I'm curious, because I have to look up a classmate of mine in college. He
But
did play. Uh, he was a goalie at Lindenwood while they were still a club team, and I'm curious. I thought he went back.
but record after the first 10, not counting the exhibition game because it's an exhibition game and it doesn't count. But I think Western's going to win that one too. So
Yeah, I have them at. I just went through it. I have them at 8-2.
I do as well.
I have them sweeping the first four,
Yep.
splitting at Omaha,
Yep.
splitting with St. Cloud,
Yep.
and then sweeping Colorado College.
Yep. I have the exact same as you are.
I just and the split at Omaha is just because it's such a tough place to play for them.
Yes, the
Right?
history of Western Omaha leads me to believe that that could be a split. I think Omaha has their entire leadership team coming back. They are getting second year captain and assistant captains. I believe it's their second year. But all three of those players are coming back in those same roles. Um, that's great news for them. Lacosi played really well last year. Uh, we did see, Western get up a big goal lead last year and then end up giving it up in the second period and end up losing, I think, game one of that series last year in Omaha. Um, Two teams that battle it out, and that's why I have them splitting there. And really the same with St. Cloud. St. Cloud's got a great goaltender in Dominic Bassi. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they've got some great players returning. I don't think they're returning as much in the defensive zone as Western, and I think really the defensive might be the strong point of the Western game, at least in the early part of the season, with all these new guys getting used to each other and figuring out how each other plays. Um, but if the individual talents appear like I believe they will, and what I've heard about each player, again, I think they could split there. Colorado College, I don't really know that they have a lot coming back. They're missing some key players in Hunter McCown. Um, I can't remember the other ones we discussed offhand. The big thing they have coming back is definitely going to be uh, Umberco in net. And really, if they can keep up the defensive prowess they showed at the end of last year, that could be potentially one that we see could be
It could
could turn out
be,
different. It could be a split. I mean,
yeah.
hell, it could even turn out like the last series did here in Kalamazoo, and Colorado College could make Western 6-4. Um, sweep that series at home. But
I just think I get worried about as far as Colorado College, I get worried about it turning into a Miami situation. I still think they're better, but with Person and solely relying on their goaltender. And Barrico, yeah, he's very, very good. And what do you guys have over there? And that's why I'm kind of like, well, Western has more firepower than even with Person and beating UMD. Western has more firepower than UMD has had in I don't know how many years. So that one it could be a split, but that's why I go Western sweeping that one.
I honestly, it comes down to the fact that I trust Cam a little bit more in his fourth year than I do necessarily Umberco in his second year. We do tend to see a lot of sophomore goaltenders struggle for whatever reason. I don't know if it's teams have them dialed in a little more, or if it's maybe the adjustments that are made in the offseason don't sit as well, or whatever it is. But we do tend to see sophomore goalies struggle a little bit, so that could play into it. I do trust Pat Firschweiler. He's shown to be a great offensive-minded coach. He's put up some great offensive teams. I don't see this year really being any different. And that experienced decor having a year with 75% of it having already played together gives me quite a bit of confidence in this Western team. So, unless there's anything else, any weird side news we want to get to, I don't think so, though. But I mean, that puts us right at about the hour mark. We can wrap it up here. Give Twitter one last peek and see if there's anything interesting going on there, but I don't think there is. Next week, Next week might be a little bit of a quick episode, and we'll look at what games we got going on with the exhibition schedule / opening series schedule. We'll call it week 0.5.
Yeah, because some teams have opening series, some teams have exhibitions.
One exhibition game.
Yeah.
Run through our picks for the NCHC. We'll give our preseason rankings. I think mine has not changed in the last couple weeks. I've not had anything jump out and make me question any extra decisions. So I think I'm locked in with where I'm at. Quite a bit of movement. I will say this, quite a bit of movement from where everybody else, or the official rankings that came out, both the national top 20 and the NCHC preseason rankings voted on by the NCHC media, which we are not a part of yet. So maybe one day that'll happen and we'll get official votes. Wouldn't that be interesting?
I don't think they would allow us to vote because, yeah, I think from typically what we've said.
What have we said?
I don't agree.
What have we said? We have never said anything rude.
No, I'm not saying rude. It's just like our opinions are very, for the most part, very different than.
I think there's even been some people who've come out and said that their votes were not necessarily 100% in line with the official tallied votes that came out. So,
Well, and then we have to the godfather of college hockey, John Butchergrass. We have to talk about that next week, and his
atrocity of a top
16. Yeah, that thing was.
I mean, a lot of it does coincide with the stupid top 20, though, which I also believe is an atrocity. But that's beside the point.
His thing was more of a disaster than when someone eats 5 alarm hot wings the next morning.
Yeah. That's beside the point, though. All right, let's wrap it up. There's some YouTubey things you can do. You could hit like, you could hit subscribe, you can hit dislike if you really feel like it. If you have subscribed, you could unsubscribe. If you haven't subscribed, you could do that. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter because we don't have an Instagram, and I'm not making one. That would be a Michael thing if he wishes to. There's the Twitter /X handle scrolling across the bottom of your screen right now. There's only one O in it. It's GOALHRNFIGHTSNG because that's the maximum number of letters you can have, and it still look like Goal Horns and Fight Songs. The Gmail account email is scrolling across the bottom of your screen now. It's Goal Horns and Fight Songs, all one word, all smushed together. No missing letters. It's all there. All of them. All the letters.
Are you sure?
Yep. I counted them just now. They're there. All of them. Anything else? Is that all there is to talk about? You could leave a comment if you really want to. You don't have to. You could share this with someone and show them how silly us two human beings are. You don't have to do that either.
I think there's only one thing left to say then.
I think there is. And that's Pucks on Net, Good Things Happen, like Goal Horns and Fight Songs. Next week, we talk about the season. It's here. So until then, we're out of here. Bye.